Hello everybody, my name's Zahir and welcome to my channel Plants and Paints, where today we're going to be talking about the Calathea Orbifolia, which is this plant here. So we're going to start a little bit by giving you a little introduction into the plant, so its origins, where you can find it naturally, and a few other facts about the plant as well. So let's get started on that. So the Calathea Orbifolia is a species of prayer plant and is from the family Marantaceae or Marantacea. I'm not quite sure which way around that's pronounced, but either one of those is correct, so feel free to correct me on which one I actually got wrong. The plant is native to Bolivia, where you can find it in the lush rainforests of South America, so grows naturally within a rainforest environment. And the Calathea orbifolia is generally kept as a house plant in temperate regions for its attractive and ornamental leaves, which I think you'll agree are really quite attractive. I actually found this plant first on another YouTuber's channel, Tropical Plant Addict, and she, as far as I'm concerned, has the nicest one I've ever seen. Really beautiful plant. And that sort of inspired me to get one of my own. I did look for a few months and eventually I did find one and managed to get it added to my collection. So these plants are kept for their ornamental value, with their round leaves and their silver to white variegation, which runs along the leaf itself, which gives it its pattern. Orbifolia also helps to purify the air. It's an air purifying plant, so generally any of the Calatheas, they will purify the air for you within your house. I have several Calatheas in my house, I think at least 10, maybe more, and to be honest, since I did add them to my home, and I added them in quite a quick succession of each other, I did notice an improvement in the quality of the air in the house. So I can definitely vouch for the fact that they do actually physically make a difference, and you, depending on the amount of plants you actually end up with, you can actually feel the difference in the air quality. Another thing that makes this plant so special is its ability to raise and drop its leaves, hence the name of prayer plant. So at night time it will raise its leaves up, and in the daytime it will drop them down again. This is due to the ability to move its leaves in that manner is due to having evolved a small joint, which is right here at the top of the leaf towards the end of the stem. That joint is where the leaf actually moves, which, you know, a plant being able to do that is quite an unusual thing to have. And I think a lot of people who actually keep prayer plants, although they are very attractive plants, generally will go out looking for a prayer plant due to its ability to move its leaves up and down from day to night. If you've got a dense enough plant, I mean, some of my prayer plants are really quite dense. If you're lucky enough to have quite dense prayer plants in your collection, then you might even be lucky enough to hear the leaves moving when they're actually closing up at night time or opening up in the morning. Often in the evening when I'm sitting down without the TV on and stuff, and my plants are getting ready to call it a night, let's just say, I can actually hear their leaves moving around every now and then, which is great. You know, it's a nice little added bonus to have with keeping a prayer plant in your house. So I've given you a general introduction there. So Marantaceae family, it's found natively in Bolivia and can be found in the rainforests, South American rainforests in those regions, South American regions. It's commonly kept as a house plant for its foliage and the fact that due to it being a prayer plant, its leaves move. I've told you a little bit about the fact that it has a joint towards the top of its stem, which it's evolved to have, and that is the reason that the leaves are actually able to move from day to night as well. purifies your air, so it's one of the many air purifying plants that you can get. I think of the air purifying plants that there are, I think Calatheas are the more attractive one and ideally suited to the house environment. So yeah, definitely something to add to your collection if it is something that you're interested in, seeing your plants moving from day to night. I personally, I think it's very fascinating. So that's just a general introduction. I think what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to a little bit about the care and maintenance of the plant. So we'll start off with the lighting. The Calathea Orbifolia is a shade-loving plant. Due to the fact that when grown in its native environment, it's found within the rainforest, and it's on ground level and it's covered by a tall canopy. So it's generally grown naturally in a shaded location. I would advise you to keep it, in a similar condition. So don't put it in any direct sunlight. You should keep your Calathea away from any direct light. What you'll find is this can actually harm the leaves. You end up with brown crispy edges on the leaves. It generally will make your plant unhappy, and also the browning can enter the inside of the leaf as well, so it doesn't have to always necessarily start on the outside. You can get patches that start on the inside and work their way out, which, unfortunately, if that happens, that's more difficult to remedy than it's starting from the outside working its way in. So light conditions, you should keep your Orbifolia out of direct light. If you're keeping it at home and you do have it in the vicinity of a window, make sure it's in like a northern exposure or something like that. Don't keep it in a southern exposure where it's going to be hit by direct sunlight. You can keep it around a window area. I mean, I keep mine just off to the side here, and you can see directly behind I've got a balcony there, and the window is there, but it's kept off to the side, so the morning light actually shines in this direction. So even though it's getting, let's say, dappled light, shaded light, it is never in any direct sunlight. Sorry. So that is lighting covered. We're going to talk a little bit about watering. So for the best results, you should maintain a regular watering schedule for this plant. Keep your Orbifolia substrate evenly moist. You don't want to overwater this plant, so do work on a schedule and try and find out a nice balance for you where you know your plant is not receiving too much water, but at the same time it's kept moist. You don't want it sitting in a very soggy environment. It doesn't like that at all. So creating the right kind of substrate for it to live in will also help you deal with that a little bit better. We'll talk about the substrates in a little while, but so you want to keep it evenly moist. It's not a drought tolerant plant, but can be quite forgiving. So if you forget to water it every now and then, it might throw a little tantrum and show you that it's quite unhappy by letting its leaves droop down, and the motion of it opening and closing from day to night might stop or even slow down quite dramatically. But providing you're not forgetting too regularly, it is quite tolerant to it, so it will perk back up, and it will live like nothing has ever happened to it. Although you don't want to make a habit of not watering the plant. I'm not suggesting to you in any way that this is the kind of plant that you can forget to water about and it's going to be okay. What I'm actually saying is that if you do forget, providing it's not a regular occurrence, and it isn't going to punish you dramatically for it by dying off or anything, but you can't leave this long term without being watered, especially during the growing season, because I find it will drink quite a lot. I mean, at the moment I'm watering this plant every week. I'm giving it about 1 litre of water, so it is drinking quite extensively. The size of the pot you can see is it's a fairly decent sized pot, and for it to be drinking a litre a week is, you know, quite substantial. So, you know, providing you're not leaving it for too long without water, that's absolutely fine. So I've covered watering there. What you can use for watering is use filtered water or rainwater. I use filtered water for all of my plants. When using filtered water, leave your filtered water or even rainwater to get up to room temperature. Generally, I'll filter my water and leave it for 24 hours, which gives enough time for any remaining contaminants that the filter hasn't managed to remove that can actually be removed in a natural process by just evaporating into the air. I will leave the water to be able to do that. So 24 hours, that also gives the opportunity for the room to get up to room temperature. You know, you don't want to water these plants with, you know, cold water straight from a tap or cold water straight from a rain butt. So yeah, let the water get to room temperature. I think that covers everything about watering the plant. We're going to now talk about humidity. Now, like many tropical plants, the Orbifolia prefers a spot with ample humidity. As you can imagine, based on the fact that it comes from a rainforest environment, you're best to try and replicate that as much as possible for this plant. So because it likes high humidity, where this plant actually lives, it sits very close. I've got a lot of my humidity loving plants sitting, you know, within a meter of the humidifier, and my humidifier is running constantly. Since the day I've got it, other than when I've had to do maintenance on it, cleaning it up and as such and things like that, then they're the only times it gets turned off. I've always got extra water sitting on the side so that once I know the water's run out, I can just fill it back up again. But all of my humidity loving plants live within a close vicinity of my humidifier, and my humidifier runs all the time, night and day. It doesn't get a break. Keeping your plants in that kind of environment will help to keep them happy. I would even recommend to move your moisture loving plants. Although I'm talking about the Orbifolia, this can pretty much go with any plant that likes a high humidity. When you're going in the shower, as strange as it may sound, every now and then take your plants and leave them in the bathroom. Make sure you close the door afterwards, and after you finish your shower, just leave them in there until the humidity clears up. And what you'll actually find is that they will be very happy for you doing that. They love to be in a very, very humid and moist environment. So an ideal little treat for them every now and then would be to just take them into the bathroom, you know, have your shower. When you're done, come out, leave them in there, let the humidity, you know, and the moisture in the bathroom evaporate as per usual. And then when you know that the bathroom is back to its normal temperature, bring your plants back inside. They will actually love that. I do that with my plants every now and then. You know, I'll also run the shower and just leave them in the shower sometimes as well, just to give their leaves a bit of a clean, because I've got so many plants it can be quite a daunting task to go through all of my plants cleaning their leaves one by one. So instead I'll take a bunch of them, maybe 10 pots at a time, and stick them in the shower and just let the shower run. In nature, you know, they go through rainstorms and all that sort of stuff, so it isn't going to affect them. It's actually going to aid to create a stronger plant for you. So concerning humidity, you can use things like a humidifier like I do. You can also mist your plants regularly. These kind of plants, particularly prayer plants, they love a good misting, so you can mist them very, very regularly. They'll, you know, it won't cause any adverse effects to them. They actually really like it. Other things you can do to raise humidity around your plant is put them on a pebble tray. So fill a tray with pebbles, half fill it with water, and that will create natural evaporation around the plant itself. The other thing you can do is you can get little seashells that you get at the seaside, and you can put them around the base of the pot. So in the substrate, not buried in the substrate, just sitting on the top. So when you're watering your plant or when you're misting your plant, those shells will capture some of the water, and that will, you know, give a little extra humidity to the plant for you. So all these little steps. I pretty much do all of that myself, but you know, you can pick and choose between them if you want to. Any one of those, not particularly the shells, that's sort of just an extra you can add on. You can even put little bottles of water around, and you know, that will help to evaporate. But a humidifier or misting the plants on a regular basis, you can pick and choose between either of those. If you don't have one or the other, it will be absolutely fine. Okay, so that's humidity. I have to be conscious of the time because I've noticed on a couple of my videos, my film was cut off before I was actually done saying goodbye and thank you for everyone for watching the video. So sorry if I seem like I'm rushing through this a little bit, because I do have a little bit more to talk about yet. So I've covered humidity in plenty of detail there. We're now going to move on to temperature. So as you can imagine, the Orbifolia enjoys the warmth. So try to keep the temperatures between 18.5 to 29 to 30 degrees Celsius. So during the growing season, you want to keep them, let's say, you know, 25 up to 30. That would be ideal during the growing season. The warmer the better for it. It will, you know, help stimulate more growth from the plant. And during the non-growing season, don't let the plant drop below 18 degrees in temperature within the environment that it's living in. It will cause the browning of the leaves that I talked about, where it actually starts from the center and starts working its way outwards. It will also cause the crisping of the edges of the leaves, and inevitably you're going to end up with a very unhappy and poorly plant, which in the end is going to either die right back on you, or it's going to cause damage to the rooting system due to the shock of the cold, and you know, you might struggle to get your plant to recover from that. Although with plants with a rhizome rooting system, they can die back quite dramatically and still recover very, very well. So if you do notice your plant lose a lot of leaves, don't think that is the end of that plant. It can still come back to life as vigorous as it was before. So temperature I've pretty much covered. Minimum of 18 to 18.5 degrees, all the way up to 29 to 30 degrees Celsius. They're the ideal temperature ranges to keep it in. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about the substrate. Now the substrate is pretty straightforward. With my Orbifolia, I actually repotted this about a month ago. I noticed that it was getting pretty root bound in the nursery pot that I received it in, and I'd had it in that for about 8 months, and due to the fact that it's, you know, quite past the beginning of the growing season, it wasn't putting off a lot of growth and its movements had slowed down quite a bit. So upon checking the rooting system, I did realise that it was quite root bound, so I did repot it, and it's been about a month now since I did that. I changed the pot size up by about 2 centimeters, and it's very happy since I did that. It's put off a ton of new growth since I did that, and its movement is back to normal at night time. Actually, at the moment, you can see the leaves are starting to curl up now. I think it's taken a bit more time because I've moved it out of its normal place, and I'm sat quite near a door that's open. So substrate, the potting medium I use, I've put a little bit of orchid bark in there, because as I said, these plants don't like to sit in a overly moist environment. So just, you know, even though I mentioned I water this a litre a week, I have taken precaution to make sure that water isn't given an opportunity to stay within that pot. If there is water that needs to run out of the pot, I've created a substrate that will allow it to do that. So what I've done, I've put an amount of orchid bark in there, I've put perlite, and I've put a good quality potting soil, quite a free draining potting soil. I've mixed them, let's say 50% potting mix, 30% perlite and 20% orchid bark mix, maybe even a little bit more than that, maybe 40% potting mix, and split the rest up between the perlite and the orchid potting mix. So, you know, giving that as much free draining ability as possible, just to make sure that when you are watering quite substantially and your plant is drinking a fair bit, that you're making sure that it doesn't, hold too much moisture in there, because last thing you want to do is have it sitting in a soggy environment. It just doesn't like that. It can cause all kinds of problems, including parasite problems, creating mites in the top of the soil. It can, damage the plant itself, damage the roots in the plant, cause root rot. It can take up too much moisture into the plant itself and cause burning of the leaves. I think I've covered the substrate there, because that's basically what I use. I use that on all my Calatheas. I've never had a problem. I've been keeping Calatheas now for a substantial amount of time, and they generally all go into that mixture of potting mix there. So I'm quite happy for you to replicate that and use that for your Calatheas. I'm confident that your plants will do well in that environment. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about fertilizer. So for best root results, I would use a general houseplant fertilizer for these plants, just with a little added iron in the fertilizer. So you can actually find general houseplant fertilizers, just your normal everyday fertilizers, that will actually tell you on the bottle that they've got added iron into it, because the Calathea family, or Marantacea family, they do like an extra little dose of iron in their fertilizer. So try and find one with some extra iron added into it. It's not the end of the world if you don't find it. Like I said, a general houseplant fertilizer will do. What you want to do is you want to fertilize this plant about every 4 weeks. In between that, like I said, this plant actually gets watered almost on a weekly basis, because it seems to be drinking a hell of a lot at the moment. I don't know if that will continue since I've repotted it, but it still seems to be drinking about 1 litre per week. So adding fertilizer once a month, and then for the other 3 weeks just watering with water will help to make sure that none of that fertilizer is left in the soil. And if the plant's had enough, it gives yourself an opportunity to have any extra fertilizer washed out of the soil mix, because you don't want it building up in the soil. You don't want to build up salts in the soil, or have too much nutrient for the plant to drink, for it to clog up its rooting system. And also, if it's taking up too much nutrients, it's got no way of getting rid of it. Even although plants do sweat and they do let off moisture, being that fertilizers are quite a heavy material, they generally struggle to get rid of them out of themselves once they've taken them in. So it will actually burn the edges of the leaves and cause a lot of crisping. So do make sure that you're only fertilizing about once a month. Use it at about 1/4 to half strength, depending on the size of your plant. If you've got a reasonably big plant, let's just say something like this guy here, my medallion, then this one I'll generally use at about half strength. But for this guy, I use it at about 1/4 strength, because he's still quite juvenile, I would suggest, in size. He's still got a lot of growing to do, so I don't want to add too much fertilizer into there. Sorry about my cough today. I don't know why that is actually happening to me. I've been fine all day. All of a sudden I seem to have a bit of a croakiness going on. So I think I've pretty much covered everything there in concerns to the care and maintenance of your Calathea Orbifolia. If there's anything more you want to know, then please don't hesitate to leave it in the comments. If you've enjoyed my video today, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe so that you can be sent notifications of future videos that I'm due to release. On average, I release a video possibly every week. I will do a vote on my Instagram account, which is also called Plants and Paints, where I will put up a selection of 3 different plants, and people will vote to see to say which plant they want to learn the care and maintenance for. I've put this on a few times and it's come quite close to winning, so I thought I'd just put it on again into this week's vote, which was between the Calathea Orbifolia, the String of Hearts, and the Alocasia Caprea Red Secret. But this this clearly won the vote this week, so hence the reason for the video today. I want to thank everyone from my Instagram for voting for this video. I know it's been in my votes a couple of times, so I'm sure a few of you have been waiting for this video for a little while now. I have had from a few different subscribers to my Instagram channel private messages on my Instagram concerning care and maintenance of their Orbifolia, which I've managed to help them out with. One of the guys I helped actually sent me some pictures of his Orbifolia that he had some problems with, and you know, it's recovered really well and is doing fantastically now after a little bit of advice. And thank you to everybody for voting for this. I hope you've enjoyed my video. Like I said, don't forget to comment at the bottom, leave a like if you've enjoyed the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and thank you very much for tuning in. Now I just want to mention quickly before I end the video about my last video. I feel like I didn't put as much effort as I could have into that video. I do apologize for that. As I mentioned in the video itself, I was very worn out. That last week was a very trying week for me. As I mentioned, I've been getting ready to set up my new plant store, and I've been dealing with my suppliers and setting up the business credentials and everything, and it's all pretty much happened over the last week, and it was really quite a tiring time for me. Even when I did the video, I really felt like I was half falling asleep at the time, and I wanted to put it off another day, but usually due to the fact that I upload my videos on a Sunday and that was pushed forward to Tuesday, I already felt like, you know, I jumped out of what I promised, you know, my viewers I would be doing. So, you know, just apologies for that. And I think I will do another video on jewel orchids again in the future, where I will go into a bit more detail, but I'll spend a bit more time researching into it, and I will try and just make it about a general video about all of the jewel orchids and try and cover as much information from them all as possible. I'm looking forward to the launch of my plant store, and for all the people on Instagram who've been showing me tons of support, and I actually mean tons of support, for the teasers that I put up of some of the first plants that I'm actually getting in, which are due to be shipped out tomorrow. They are just a small selection of what's actually coming, and there are a ton of rare and difficult to source plants on the way. So I hope you're as excited as I am about this happening, and I look forward to seeing you all in my next video next week. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you for all your support, your continued support, and I will see you again next week. Take care. This is Zahir, Plants and Paints. Bye bye.